Welcome to Ghouls Night Out with your hostesses, Brandy and Jody.
Hello, beautiful ghouls. Welcome. This is Brandy. I'm here with my sister, Jody.
Hello.
So, we are doing a happy hour this episode, if you didn't already notice. And we have chosen the documentary called Sasquatch. It is on Hulu. And there's actually only 3 episodes so far. And we did not know that was going to happen. So we did the first 2 episodes this week, and then we're going to do probably a regular episode next week and then revisit, I think. So, what did you think first?
So far, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's very interesting,
but
for sure.
I think it's the first few episodes, and you know how, like in a TV show or something, you got to get into it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what these are. It's just kind of starting to get into it.
Right. And one thing that I definitely noticed was it was one of those things where you went back and forth.
Yeah.
You were like, okay, so it's totally real, like no question.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is very interesting. So we're just going to discuss. So it starts off, it's a man named David Holthouse. He is an investigative journalist. And he starts talking about the fall of 1993. So he was 23 years old. He was visiting a good buddy working on a cannabis farm in Northern California. So he's driving to meet this friend. So it's a foggy drive. It's raining. He said it rained really hard pretty much the whole time he was there.
Oh, and I love the cartoons, by the way.
Yes, the animations.
Yes, animation. That's what I was trying to figure.
Yeah.
When they're going down the road and it's turning.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, it's not very great animations, but
it's different. So.
Okay, so he said basically he's surrounded by huge trees going, up to this cannabis farm.
It's like a redwood forest, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah. It's completely covered by this, the sky is basically non-existent when you're in there. The branches cover it. This is a very, very big forest. No daylight coming in. So he gets to the town of Brancombe, California. He arrives, and his friend picks him up. He said there's nothing but gated properties, and all of them are marked no trespassing for a reason. Yeah. So basically everybody is very private up there. They don't want anybody on their property. So they get to where his friend is staying, which is just a building.
Yeah.
No heat, no water, no electricity, nothing. And they start working. So the next day he's working around all these guys who are, I've been there for a while, and they're all of them are talking about Sasquatch and how it's a real thing and it's around there. And they're scaring people. They all talk about bluff charges, which are like you can hear them charging, but then they'll turn away.
Yeah.
Growling, throwing rocks, these big rocks.
Like boulders.
Right. And, they're all talking about this. And this guy he thinks they're fucking with him. He thinks that they're trying to scare him or hazing, basically, because he's the new guy. They also talk about whether it's one Sasquatch or multiple. They don't know if there's multiple, like, around the whole place, or if it's just one that's, traveling. So the second night, he's working with him, and they're sitting in this building that they're all staying in after they got back. And the owner gets a phone call. He said he could tell it was a really tense conversation, And the owner kept saying, you got to keep him mellow. Keep him mellow. And finally, this truck pulls up. These two guys come in. They're soaking wet and muddy. And one of them is panicking. And this guy, David, is just trying to stay out of sight, basically.
Yeah, he's just minding his own business. Right.
Because, he basically, this guy is panicking, and it's making everybody uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So he hears this guy that's panicking saying, no, the weed is still there. It wasn't a ripoff. So the weed is still there. And then he hears the owner say, are you sure they're dead? And then the guy that's freaking out is like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah, they're dead. They were like ripped apart and mangled. And then the quieter guy of the two agreed that he saw it too. And then the panicky guy says we have to warn everybody. There were 3 bodies torn to pieces. The owner's trying to shush him, like, keep him calm. And then he basically screams, a Bigfoot killed those guys. And that was the beginning.
Yes.
Okay, so then there's the intro that I just wanted to go over a little bit. The people they're being interviewed from a really long time ago. You can tell it was like probably the 50s or 60s. And the way that they're talking is so matter of fact about Bigfoot. And it's super weird. And it's also the way they're talking, it's kind of strange to me. Like, the guy was like, the smell was so offensive, I shan't stay around any longer. And I was like, what? Like, it was just really weird. And then this guy, you can tell it's really old footage, and he's showing a sign that Bigfoot supposedly marked or scratched.
Oh, the scratch, yeah.
No fucking way. Okay, these claw marks are so close together.
Uh-huh.
Something really small scratched
that's what I was thinking. And it wasn't very deep either.
No, it was like, no, like, honey, no.
They will see what they want to see.
Well, then right after that, they say they're 7 to 9 feet tall, 300 or 400 pounds. So I like that sign. Like, no. And one guy said that their eyes are very knowing, which I'm like, how do you know that? And they said that there are bears around there, but bears don't do the things that they're finding. So it's they think it's Bigfoot. They believe that.
And didn't they also say that, because some of the things that people say, it's like, well, how come we've never found a carcass
right.
of a Bigfoot or whatever? And the guy was like, well, how often do you find carcasses of bears?
That's what I was getting at. I meant to write that too. But yeah, they would say there are, I actually put that in my notes. Hold on. Maybe I didn't. But yeah, they said there were like, I bet it's in my notes because I remember writing it. But there was like 600 black bears in that area, around 600. And with the guy, it was the professor, and we'll get back to this. But yeah, he said that by his estimate, there's about 300 Bigfoot out there. And, if you don't ever see a bear carcass when there's twice as many of those, why would you ever see a Bigfoot carcass? So yeah. Okay, so going back to David, he comes back in and he said he has a bunch of stories to tell. This just wasn't one that he told anyone because they wouldn't believe him.
Yeah, he said it sounded ridiculous.
Right. And by the way, these are exactly the stories that we are looking for. The kind that you don't think people will believe.
Yes.
So write in, please. GhoulsNightOutPodcast@gmail.com. Okay, then he started thinking that he couldn't have been remembering this night right. He was like, there's no way that I'm remembering this right. So he goes to square one. So he starts looking up missing persons reports from that time. Nothing. There's no 3 males missing in that area at that time. And, he's an investigative journalist. And he says that the real story is never told during 9 to 5 hours. So he's, all about going into these different worlds. He has a knack for blending into these different worlds. He has, he went undercover with Chicano street gangs on both sides of a turf war.
Mm-hmm.
What?
The stuff he's done is crazy.
I know. Renting drugs for drug mules. Stayed up 72 hours with meth heads. Going undercover with neo-Nazi skinheads and reporting on all of this shit.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So yeah, this guy has some really fucking crazy stories, and this is his craziest.
Mm-hmm.
So he says he wouldn't just walk away and forget about it, even if the people just got murdered. He wanted to find out the truth, what was going on. So he calls the friend that he was going to meet up and, who got him this job, which he basically says he had the same experience. He basically used the same words that David used to describe this. And so he was, yeah, I am remembering this right. This has to be right. And then the guy that he's talking to is like, I wanted to forget this. Why are you bringing this up now? And he said that the bodies were torn up. He was scared the whole time he was there. He asked him if he could get a hold of the guy, like the owner, and he didn't have any new information for him. He gave him 2 names, and they were both the people that he had already thought of.
Yeah.
So he wanted to know, but going back, he wanted to know why he was doing this, which that question kind of set him back a little bit. He was like, why am I doing this? It's ridiculous. Bigfoot murdered 3 guys on a dope farm. He looks like he's like, what the fuck? Nobody's going to believe that.
Which we never did tell anybody what he was doing for that job.
Well, he was picking he was on the cannabis farm.
Yeah, but we never said that.
Well, yeah, I did.
No, you did.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't remember.
I said he was going to the cannabis farm. Yeah, visiting a good buddy working on a cannabis farm in Northern California. Anyway. He's on a cannabis farm.
Yes.
Anyway, so...
And that's what was all up there.
Oh, yeah.
Was cannabis farms or people that decided to go off grid.
Well, yeah, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So the reason why he's doing this now, like 25 years later or whatever, is because he has to know the truth. Basically, he's a journalist.
Yeah, he needs to find out what really happened.
Exactly. So basically, there are 3 counties, and it's called the Emerald Triangle. So there's Humboldt County, Mendocino County, and Trinity County. And they are known for great cannabis plants. Everything up there grows better than anywhere else in the world. And stories have been passed down from the indigenous people for hundreds of years over, in that area. So it's, when people are talking about Bigfoot over there, it really starts because they believe it 100%. So it really feels like it's not such an unlikely story when you go up there and start talking to people about Bigfoot. And he said the woods up there, just in general, is a spooky place. It feels like you're being watched no matter where you are. So this place, these 3 counties in particular, have a really dark history. Lots of blood spills in those woods. There was the 1860s gold rush. Hordes of white frontiersmen brutalizing the indigenous people, committing massacres, including a number towards the Wiyot tribe. I guess they snuck into their camp in the middle of the night, shot the men, probably in their sleep, then switched to knives, hatchets, and axes, and slaughtered the women, children, and elderly. Fucking horrible. So the gold rush dies down, and the timber industry booms. It goes up. So loggers are taking down all these trees, stripping the land of its natural resources. So 95% of the original trees are cut down, some of them 1,000 years old, and they're just gone. So at this point, hippies and these back to the landers people start moving in. So back to the landers will come up again, and it's just basically a hippie group.
Yeah.
So,
living off the land and
exactly. They're drawn to the lawlessness of the place because, where there's no laws, there's freedom.
Yeah.
So people, they want to go off the grid. So our first guest is Christopher Dienstag. He is a former cannabis farmer, just basically talking about the community that these people are building. Then there's Molly Sinaway. She is a back to the lander. She's saying that so many people wanted the same thing out there. They just wanted to, live their life, raise kids, just be free, do their own thing. They had one outhouse, one kerosene lamp, no electricity, no running water, nothing.
Horrible.
Yeah, it would be so bad.
It would be horrible.
But it was the 70s. The people were all about it. They loved it.
Could you imagine someone trying to go back now?
No.
And doing that?
Hell no.
That's a joke.
You're like, where is my phone?
Where is my TV shows?
Okay, so then our next guest is Ghost Dance. He is funny. He's a cannabis farmer. Just basically saying what a beautiful place it was to live. That's why people were drawn. And then there's Charles Carlson. He's a back to the lander. It was the age of Aquarius. Vietnam War had just ended. Everyone was thinking everything was magical, thinking that everything was going to be unicorns and rainbows up there. They just, again, wanted to get back to nature and raise their kids. Not a whole lot up there in ways of earning a living, so they started getting into marijuana by default. That was basically the only thing, and there was money in it. There was a lot of money in it. Okay, so now we come back to Ghost Dance. He's back on, and he's rolling up himself a doobie. And he gets super stoned right away. Uh-huh. And then they go back to Charles, and, he's basically just saying that this is the perfect place to grow pot, grow anything, because, again, everything up there, it's perfect for growing. And then Ghost Dance finds Bigfoot on camera. Super stoned old dude. And he brings out this toy Bigfoot, and it is hilarious. And then he basically, you can tell that he was asked if he believed. And he is just, he's one of those people that you have to see to believe it. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't seen anything. Yeah. So, and then we go back to Charles. And he starts talking about how they have a sweet, musky smell. Yeah. And
which is not what I've heard.
That's literally what I wrote down. I have not heard. I heard they don't smell good at all.
At all.
And then was he talking about Bigfoot periods? I think he said something about the Bigfoot moon cycles and why it smells sweet.
Oh.
He's kind of creepy.
I must have.
You probably blocked it out because it was bad.
Did. I don't remember that.
But yeah, he started talking about the sweet musky smell and the moon cycles for the Bigfoots. So okay. I thought Bigfoot period. I didn't know what he was talking about.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Moving on. Okay, so David comes back on. He's contacting everybody he can to find out who was involved in the early 90s with cannabis farming. And nothing. Mm-hmm. Nobody's saying anything. Everyone's saying they've never heard anything like that. He gets laughed at by this guy. And literally this guy said it's the funniest thing he's ever heard. But he's totally into the alien stuff about the Navy that's been talking about. What? And why would he believe aliens but not Bigfoot? Because it says it on the news? Like that's real? But he literally laughed at him because of Bigfoot. But he's like, oh, but I totally believe in aliens. And David's like, what? Like, seriously, he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. So anyway, he ends up hiring a private investigator. He's an ex-cop, and he's familiar with the dope worlds or contacts. And he's gonna go another way because he's not getting any information on his own. So Next comes James Bobo Fay, which is he one of the guys from that Sasquatch Hunter show?
Is he the one that had the stupid thing on his beard?
I don't know. But he is a Sasquatch hunter. And I think he's the guy from the Bigfoot hunting show, but he looks really different than he did then. And also, what's wrong with him? Because he's super weird.
He is very, and that's, I couldn't get past the
Maybe
beard.
he did have, because I was more listening to it than watching it. So
yeah, he had it was a beard, and then he had like
a bead?
no, it was like a rubber band, like, I don't know. It looked stupid.
Like a beard ponytail?
Kind of, but it's like the rubber band or whatever he used went all the way down.
Oh. Anyway, so he said that this Bobo guy, he said he has heard of several instances where Bigfoots have been aggressive or violent. He said he's heard of men being ripped apart. One in particular, arms, legs, and head ripped off. And he also said when you walk out there, all Bigfoot sees is a slab of meat. Don't trust him, is what he says. So David starts looking for squatchers because, he wants to get more information. Also, growers are looking for the same landscape as Sasquatch hunters, that, deep, remote, inaccessible, and has water. Mm-hmm. They need the same conditions, so they run into each other a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's Jerry Hine. He comes in. He's a Sasquatch hunter. Stories about...
Was he the cute old man?
I don't know.
There was a cute old man. I can't remember what his name was, though.
I think I know who you're talking about. That's not him.
Oh, okay.
So he just basically says that he had heard of 10-foot tall pot plants that the tops had been snapped off. Like the Bigfoots just eat them like it's nothing. And the pot is still there. If it was human, they would steal it.
Yeah.
So they're just, who would do that? Who else would do that?
Mm-hmm.
Then Bobo comes back, and he makes a good point. He says people think that where would a Bigfoot hide? And he's absolutely right. There is so much land that is covered that no one has ever seen. And, people would have to be stupid to think that they couldn't hide out there.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is thousands of acres that is so remote, nonstop mountains, rivers, lakes, forests, thousands of miles. Mm-hmm. So there's absolutely...
There's probably caves and all kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah, things that people have never seen before.
Yeah.
So, it's true, because that was one of the things that I always thought. Like, someone would find one or, see a dead one or something, but it's possible that nobody's just come across it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then they start talking about the Patterson-Gimlin film, which it was filmed in that area, and still to this day, the most talked about Bigfoot evidence since 67, and all other evidence is compared to this film. So it's like the most, highly talked about and analyzed piece of Bigfoot evidence. And then Bob Gimlin is, I think, the little cute old man that you're talking about.
I don't think it was one of the Patterson-Gimlin people.
I don't know then. Maybe. So he says nothing can exist like a Bigfoot. There's nothing out there like it. Every day him and this Patterson guy would ride through the mountains to look for Bigfoot. They were actually searching for Bigfoot. They were 20 days into their search, and one was there looking at them, which is the film. Mm-hmm. So then you see the famous turn, and that turn was apparently her looking at Gimlin getting off his horse because he made some noise. And he thought, oh my God, they do exist. Like, holy shit. He said that he has never heard of them being aggressive or anything like that. He's actually heard about them protecting people before and, go in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So he says to go in the woods with apprehension and an open mind if you're going to go look for Bigfoot. Then Sasquatch hunters and life partners come in. Wayne and George's?
Yeah, that was weird. I don't know.
George's?
Yeah, I guess.
His name is George's. And then you could tell they were asked, where do they differ when it comes to Bigfoot?
Mm-hmm.
And George's says that Wayne believes that they can teleport and cloak when they start arguing. And he's like, no, don't give me that bullshit. I don't believe that. And Wayne thinks that he is blood and guts, human being, creature, whatever.
Yeah.
Wayne walked into the woods with some noises following him. That's why he got into Bigfoot. And George's, he, as a kid, saw eyes out of his window at 2 a.m.
Yes. And he screamed.
Yes. Wayne was camping, and he said that his tent was being squashed down, and he was screaming, and then the tent let go, and he heard something run off. But both has never seen anything definitively. And that's basically all that they were on there for.
Yeah,
I really wasn't sure why.
They're probably going to be back on, but
probably. Then Jim Murphy comes on.
He was scared shitless.
That is putting it nicely.
Yeah.
This man was terrified. So he's a retired police officer. He was fishing at the time, having some trouble getting out a description. He's fucking freaking out, even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Freaking out.
He was in his car.
Yes.
Safe as can be, but he was shaking.
Yeah, he was freaking out.
He looked like he was getting ready to cry.
I say that too. Okay, so he said at first it stank really bad. He said it had hair all over, like dreadlocks, and it was going through the water, but he didn't know what it was. I put him freaking out. Mm-hmm. He said he heard a scream like a banshee and turned and ran, never went back. He started crying. So scared, poor man, is what I put.
Yeah.
So scared.
How did he say how long ago it was?
It was a long time ago, too.
So it's like that stuck with him.
Absolutely. This
Big
man
time.
was either the best actor in the entire world, or that man was fucking terrified.
Yes.
Which, oh my God. Okay, so then this professor comes on. He's from Idaho State University, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, professor of anatomy and anthropology. And he was asked, what question are you asked the most? And it was, do you believe? He says, no, I don't. He said, have you ever accepted something in the absence of evidence? Just accepted it. Basically, that's what he believes that they're asking him. Yeah. Are you accepting something without any evidence whatsoever? So no, he's not. And I put such a professor answer to a question.
Yeah.
He says he's convinced by evidence, and the footprint evidence was the most substantial in his opinion. And he said that with as many footprints that have been found over, the course of time, there's no way it can be a hox. Which I was like, holy shit.
There's not that many people out there that are going to waste their time hoaxing Bigfoot.
Right.
And was that the Bill? Was he in that room that had like all those casts of feet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're everywhere. And then going back to our earlier conversation, I said, thinks that there are about 300 Bigfoot and there are at least 600 black bears. Where are the bear carcasses? Mm-hmm. So it's rare to find a black bear carcass. So what makes people think, basically?
Yeah. Of course, honestly, I don't run into carcasses much at all. So.
Well... And you do go out in the woods quite a bit.
Yeah. So. My carcasses are on the side of the road.
Yeah.
That's as close as I get to carcasses.
Yeah, me too, as I fly by them. And he basically says never go out into the woods not protected. So, no matter what.
Just don't go.
Exactly. And I don't know why I put this, but I said super strong, throws logs, and could throw a car, and could easily tear a person apart. I don't know if that was him saying his opinion, but I wrote that. Okay, so then it goes back to the PI guy. And he has a friend that used to grow pot that has heard about Sasquatch. And then David is asked, how confident are you that murders actually occurred? Like, any other question, are you sure people got murdered? And He keeps going back to what he knows he heard that night. He heard this terrified, traumatized guy convinced that he saw 3 bodies mutilated, mangled, torn to pieces, and Sasquatch did it. Like, that's what this guy believed. He said that when he came into the place, the temperature changed. Like, he could tell this guy was that freaked out. And said it feels like he's grabbing at smoke at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then David found Razor. And this guy was growing cannabis in the early 90s in Mendocino County. He asked him about the murders. And he says he's definitely heard about them. He actually kind of left it like an open-ended question. And this Razor guy filled in everything that David remembered. But he said that he heard about 3 Mexican workers found at a camp. And the story stood out to him because he had heard it several times when it happened. And it happened on a farm on Spy Rock Road. So then Ghost Dance is back.
Ghost Dance. You think he gave himself that name?
Absolutely. 100% yes. Yes. And then he starts talking about petroglyphs, which I really meant to look those up and I forgot. But he said that the oldest engraved petroglyphs in the whole United States are there. And so there's already mysticism up at this Spy Rock.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't recommend going and just walking around. Outsiders aren't welcome there.
Yeah, I wouldn't go.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of going back to Razor, the geography, time frame matched, what he remembers, and where he was at the time all match. So we're in California desert now. David meets Razor. He was raised by Hell's Angels in the 60s, grew up 70s, 80s, 90s with other cannabis farmers. He's very well respected up there. Everyone else didn't give him a date for the story. And he didn't want to feed them any information. That's why he left it kind of open. But Razor immediately nailed the time frame, the place, everything. So they said that their biggest threat up there was Bigfoot. And are they going to get attacked? It was a lot to deal with. Everybody was stressed out. And then this is the end of the first episode. So basically there's like an outro. And David gets 3 text messages from this PI that he'd been working with. They said, quote, "I feel morally and ethically bound to warn you that you are venturing into dangerous territory. Quote, unlike you, I live here and have family to protect. You, please be careful."
Mm-hmm.
And that was the end of episode 1.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the fuck is going on? That's really weird. Okay, so episode 2. Honestly, this episode was really uneventful.
Yeah.
It started off with Bob Hieronymus. I don't know if I said that right. Self-proclaimed Sasquatch hoaxer.
Yes.
He said and he's sitting there with a gigantic Bigfoot head, which is weird. But he said that Patterson and Gimlin paid him $1,000 to put this Sasquatch suit on. But he couldn't tell anybody. Mm-hmm. Can't tell anybody. He said, okay. And for 35 years, he denied it. He said he put his legs in first, then his arms, and they zipped it up. And he was afraid of getting shot.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that happened.
What, you think it's real?
I don't know. I don't know. But Gimlin starts talking about him and his size, which this guy, Bob, that was talking in the beginning, he's sitting on a chair, but he's a small dude.
Yeah.
Really small guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, exactly, because that's the first thing that Gimlin said was, this guy's really small. Like, there's no way. But that's exactly what I thought. The guy was super small, and you can tell he's small just by looking at him on camera. And then he gets caught lying on camera. He said that Gimlin doesn't acknowledge his existence. He won't talk to him. He won't wave at him. And Gimlin's wife off camera, she's like, He waves to you.
Yeah.
And he still is like, oh yeah, he's waved to me a couple times, but he still won't acknowledge my existence. Like, dude, you got caught in a fucking lie.
Yeah.
On camera, talking about hoaxing a lie. Like, what the fuck? So immediately I'm like, dude, you suck. I did not like that dude.
Something about his right hip. He said,
oh, wait, you can see his wallet.
Look at my right hip. I was wearing jeans. That's my wallet. Nobody can see that.
No.
He was a weirdo.
Yeah, he was not credible at all to me. And it just doesn't look like a suit to me. It doesn't. It looks real to me. And with everyone's analysis over all this time, how many people have studied it? You know, like,
well,
and
if
nobody
you look at it and just, I mean, like the arm length.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It really looks authentic to me. It really does. Okay, so going back to David and Razor, they're talking, and Razor actually gives him 2 pieces of information that he didn't know before, which is that they were 3 Mexican workers, and it was it happened at Spy Rock, or on Spy Rock Road specifically. Yeah. Okay, so this PI that David was working with won't return his calls, texts, emails, nothing. Super weird. Like, what the fuck? So David calls Razor and wants to talk, and Razor agrees. They start looking into old newspaper archives, and there are a lot of things that happen in that area, but nothing like what he's looking for. No 3 guys murdered, nothing like that. And then they zoom into one paragraph, and it says, at least 100 marijuana plants found at the Spy Rock Road residence where 1 man was murdered and another wounded. But the article was talking about the pot, not the fucking murders. Like, what? Guys got murdered and you're worried about some plants. Like, there's really priorities that are not being met here. Okay, so Razor's talking about Spy Rock Road and how you are completely cut off up there. Nobody's around. Then Ghost Dance comes back. And Hell's Angels apparently control that part of the mountains. So the area was protected by them, but lots of shit happened up there.
So Hell's Angels, they used to be really bad.
Really, yeah.
They're not so much anymore.
I don't think so, no.
Because I've heard a lot about them doing like
charity
work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's way different now.
Yeah.
But so pot is easy to grow, not easy to protect. So if you don't get respect from your neighbors, you have to instill fear, basically. So this is basically what Razor did. It was a war zone. DEA is trying to eradicate pot plants. David thought it was some peaceful utopia that he was going to go work on, but everyone was carrying guns. Heavily armed hippies, literally.
Yeah.
They would set booby traps. They would check, maintain, and install booby traps, setting small game traps, setting up motion sensors, all this crap.
Fish hooks on fishing line
right
around the pot plants.
Yeah, so
you couldn't just walk in and try to take them.
Right. They were going nuts.
Yeah.
So at this time, DEA made weed top priority. Everyone was super paranoid. And then this camp thing starts. It's a campaign against marijuana planting. I put UGG. Dave Ferranto, camp commander. Fuck you, idiot, is what I put. Developed in 1982. That's when I was born. Fuck you. And they wanted to eradicate marijuana in California, period. That was their only priority.
What they wanted to do was be a group of people that could do whatever they wanted.
Whatever they want. Which I'll get to that.
Whenever they wanted.
I'll get to that.
A bunch of assholes.
Exactly.
Basically.
Exactly, on a fucking power trip. Okay, so Molly Sinaway is back. She found out about camp when helicopters started flying over where their kids went to school. They were scared. These people were full combat gear, automatic rifles coming in. They would go one farm to the next, cutting everything down. Fuck you. Farms gone in a matter of an afternoon. People pissed for good reason. People being like chased by helicopters. Come on. What the fuck? So Ron Sinaway, which I'm assuming is Molly's husband, comes on. He was actually a lawyer fighting for these families that happened to live up there. Had nothing to do with marijuana whatsoever. If you lived in these counties, you were not protected. Period. It didn't matter if you were just living there. You were in that area. So they were coming after you. Families that weren't involved with anything, officers came in the area and shot their dogs. Mm-hmm. Cops were above the law in this area. Dirty hippies didn't matter, basically, is what they were saying.
Yeah.
Dehumanizing everyone up there over some pot. Then Mark Saez, whatever, camp officer, showing off some stupid patches. Thinks his movie quote is hilarious and he doesn't even know what movie it was from. But it said, if you plan it, we will come. That's from Field of Dreams. He didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, but he thought he was hilarious.
Oh, he wasn't he the one that was like, oh, it was great.
Loved it. That's
my time of my life.
My next sentence.
Blah, blah, blah.
Loved it. Loved it.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Douchebag.
He was a white man
On a power trip. Absolutely. And that was my next sentence. He loved it. I put total douche. Idiots on a fucking power trip would come in and take everything from these people, even smoke their pot.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
They would tear it all down, and then at the end of the day, they would smoke some pot.
Yeah, fuck you. So basically, they were working hard for these plants, and they can't get caught now. So they're hiding their plants. Prices skyrocket. Families become very protective of who you allowed onto your camp, even visitors. Setting up security. And then a store opened that was close that was selling guns and, security equipment. Everyone paranoid all the time. Lots of people left at this point, and some turned into protectors of their money. Like that was their biggest priority, and it was becoming a dangerous place. So next is there's a confidential informant that David is calling, and this guy wants to meet. He agrees to meet him at a bar. And David says he feels really comfortable around criminals and they feel comfortable around him. So meets this guy, very racist man. Mm-hmm. Racism is really bad in that area, especially in the 90s. If anyone disappears, their families wouldn't know where to begin to look or tell authorities. Like if you disappeared and you were a Mexican farmer, you had no family up here, you would just disappear.
Yeah. Nobody
would look for you. These guys were supposed to be, Mexican people that may not have had families that lived in the U.S. Then we meet Diana. And we really don't know anything about her. She's from Mexico. She came from Mexico at the age of 4 and said that they come here to learn about growing and to see what it would be like to make a lot of money at once.
Yeah.
But they don't know the dangers of it, and they're risking their lives to do this. People start going nuts up there. The guy that came in freaked out that night. David actually learned later that guy was on crystal meth at the time. Yeah. So, at this point, he's like, well, how credible is this guy? Mm-hmm. He didn't know that at the time, but he was dealing with a lot of people that were doing meth at the same time. And he called them the ruthless and toothless. I couldn't. So basically, even when, after this really freaked out conversation that this guy had, going back to that night when David was on that farm, even after he left, the owner was like, oh, that was fucking weird.
Yeah, and he went about his business.
Yeah, they just laughed it off, basically. Didn't talk about it anymore at all. So this confidential source won't be on camera. They met at a restaurant. And it closes, and it's just them left. They're the only person. And this guy says, so I hear you're looking into the 3 guys that someone, they bleep out the name, greased back in 93. As if it was common knowledge. Yeah. Like, he just says it out of the blue. And this guy that supposedly killed these guys worked on a farm owned by Hell's Angels.
Hell's Angels, yep.
So this guy that they bleeped out his name, Razor won't even talk about him. Like, he's a dangerous guy.
Razor was like,
yeah, as soon as
immediately shut it.
Yeah, if anybody heard this guy's name, except for Ghost Dance. If anybody heard this guy's name, they were like, no, I'm not talking about it. So he must be really fucking crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Diana is back, and we finally find out who she is. So in 2013, her uncle, Hugo Lopez, was asleep in a tent and murdered in his sleep through the wall of the tent, was shot. She loves him and misses him very much. Very sad. And Ghost Dance is back on, and he's trying to get in touch with this Mysterioso guy that they keep bleeping out his name, and he gets him on the phone. And that's the end of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And Ghost Dance also said he was a good neighbor.
Oh, yeah, Ghost Dance was all about this guy that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So those were basically the first 2 episodes of this. It's very interesting. And there is a 3rd episode, but we wanted to do 2 at a time. So, again, we're going to do a regular episode next week. And then hopefully we will revisit this and figure out what the fuck is going on.
Yes.
And if there's actually Sasquatches in Northern California. So, that's it. You got anything else?
No, not really.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Well, and again, when you're watching it the entire time, you're like, okay, it's a dangerous place. They were totally murdered by people.
Yeah.
And then, okay, well, what about these footprints? And why was the top of the pot plants bit off? And
why were their arms and
why were they mangled?
Torn off?
Yeah, they were mangled, apparently.
To me, if it's a person or, a group like Hell's Angels or whatever, they're going to use guns.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that personal of an attack. Their pot would be gone.
Yes.
I mean, it would be a totally different situation. So what the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is. It's very interesting and suspenseful. And I want to know really bad, but I guarantee we're going to watch this whole thing and nobody's going to know.
Yeah. Well, we have to have hope. He's a good
he is
journalist, investigative journalist. So maybe he'll figure it out.
Yeah. And there were, if you guys want to watch it, there were a few things I didn't talk about that just didn't have anything to do with the story at all, but it was more about David. So, if you want to learn more about him and the things that he used to do in his past and everything, that was a little bit more in there, but it didn't have anything to do with the actual story, so I kind of left it out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he's lived a very
crazy,
interesting life.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Send in your stories. We still need them. ghouls.nightoutpodcast@gmail.com. If you want to comment on your thoughts on Sasquatch, we want to hear it. You can look us up on Facebook, ask to join the group, rate, review, and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next week.
Later.
Bye.